There's something curious about this broadcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, and we have main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
This is TGP Nominal. Commence episode now.
All systems remain nominal.
Hello everybody and welcome to TGP Nominal, your monthly look at all things science fact and science fiction. Well, I know we haven't put anything out for January, but we didn't think you'd notice with the amount of content we put out at the end of December. What with the 3 episodes of the Christmas crossover with over 3 hours of content to listen to, so we didn't really think you'd mind that much. But we're back for February, and obviously the show wouldn't be the show without my regular co-host John Berger. How you doing?
No, it'd be better without me.
It's not the same without you, because when you haven't got someone to bounce off, it's not the same, and we always have a real good bit of banter going on, so that's always good. So, how you been?
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Yeah, well, by that tone, I think I can tell where that's going.
Yeah, it's gone better. Personally, it's going okay. As a nation, it's gone better.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can't really talk politics too much here.
No, unfortunately, there is a little bit of what we talk about that does involve politics. Obviously, when you're talking about government-funded space operations, there will be a little bit of politics in there, but we do try and keep away from it as much as we can. But you've got to laugh, haven't you?
Oh, if you don't, you'll cry.
That's for sure. I would say it's similar here, but I wouldn't put Keir Starmer in the same category, so...
No.
But I get where you're coming from. It's been busy for you again because you've been doing a load of live streaming.
Oh, God, yeah.
And as you mentioned in the Christmas episodes, you had to do a 24-hour live stream?
Boy, I'll tell you, man. Not recommended. That stuff's rough.
Yeah, Pavo did a 24-hour live stream. He's a podcaster that we collaborated with in the past, and yeah, he quite regularly does streams. I think he does an annual one for charity, and actually during lockdown, he was out in his front yard doing karaoke for charity, and his neighbours were on the other side of the street, so they weren't getting too close to him, so they could listen to him sing. He does some really good podcasts too, so I'll put a link to his stuff in the show notes. But yeah, he could vouch for you there for the fact that a 24-hour stream is tough.
Fortunately, the last few hours I was actually playing a game with some friends of mine. So they were like, hey, you know, just let us know. And so we were playing, oh God, what was it? Lethal Company. We were playing Lethal Company for like the last 4 hours. And you know, these are people who I really get along with pretty well. We had a lot of fun with it. You know how like regular alkaline batteries, their power just decreases slowly over time. And that's fine. But lithium ion rechargeable batteries, they kind of go. And then at the very end, they just and then plummet off. So you could be using your whatever, your tools or whatever, and all of a sudden they just stop. That's what streaming for 24 hours is like. You know, I was going fine for the first 18 hours, but man, those last 6, that's when your body's like, okay, why are you doing this? And then mentally you start to fog up. It was, yeah, the last 6 hours were the roughest. If I didn't have my friends saying, hey, join us in Lethal Company, man. But I'll tell you, I slept for 11 hours that night.
Yeah, it's always handy to have people around you that can, you know, boost that energy.
Yeah, I don't know how I would have been able to make it otherwise, honestly. Even playing the game, I had a countdown timer on my stream, and I'm watching this countdown timer saying, oh God, it's only been a half hour? Okay. The last 6 hours is rough. But at the same time, it was for charity. Mm-hmm. And if my stream decides for the next big charity stream that they want me to do that again, well, it's for charity.
That's the way you got to look at it. If you keep that in the forefront, sort of like a carrot, as it were.
Yep.
So yeah, for myself, I know they say never do the New Year, New Me thing, but I needed to lose some weight. So basically, I'm cutting back on the amount of saturated fats I'm taking in. My air fryer is a godsend. I'm also cutting back on carbonated drinks, which is a killer.
Yeah, no. No, not me. Nope.
But I have discovered this drink. It's made by a company called Vimto, which is a brand that's been going for years in the UK, and they've brought out this new flavour. It's called Blood Orange with a citrus twist. Now, the best way to describe it is, in the States, you have a drink called Hawaiian Punch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do.
And you can't get that over here, but this tastes very much like it. And yeah, I kind of enjoy it. So I'm quite happy to have that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just cutting down on saturated fats. I'm cutting down on the amount of my non-natural sugar intake. So I'm eating a lot more fruit. I'm taking in a lot more protein than I was previously. And I'm getting out and about a bit more. I've actually noticed a difference in 2 weeks since I've been doing it. In that 2 weeks, I've actually noticed that when I say my stomach, I don't mean my actual body shape. I mean my actual inner stomach. My actual stomach is getting a little bit smaller. So I'm actually feeling that I'm feeling full quicker, which is a good thing. So something's happening. So what I'm doing is, the weekends, I can have a few more treats and stuff, but I don't overdo it. But during the weekday, I don't have anything apart from my main meal and something small in the evening. In between times, if I feel like I want something sweet, I'll have a piece of fruit, nuts, stuff like that. And as I say, I'm noticing a difference in the way I feel.
Nice.
That's a good thing. So hopefully the weight's going to come off. I don't expect it to come off all that much, because as you get older, it's a lot difficult to lose the weight.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of enjoying it in a way, because I'm actually cooking things differently. I'm doing more cooking myself now. Yeah, I feel better for the fact that I'm not cooking things in fat anymore. I'm using the natural fats that are actually in the food to cook itself, and it seems to be working for me. So fingers crossed it's going to do its best.
Nice, good to hear. I couldn't do it. So more power to you.
Talking of food, I'm not sure about this, but I think it's the first time in McDonald's history in the UK that we've had shamrock shakes. I know probably there's going to be some people out there saying, "Now we've had them in the past." Well, yeah, we might have done, but I've never come across them. So as of the 11th of February, we will be able to try shamrock shakes in the UK.
That's when my McDonald's points goes up way higher than it should.
I'll be able to report back on that and tell you what I think.
Nice.
I should enjoy it. As you say, it's mint, isn't it?
It's mint. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream, so if it's anything like that, I will enjoy it. So I'll have to make sure I have one of those on one of my cheat days. It's one of the strange things. It's been out in the UK before. It was popular, so they're bringing it back, which is the Philly cheese stack, not steak, it's stack. As you've said in the past, it can't be anything like a Philly cheesesteak unless it's got cheese whiz in it.
No.
Cheese whiz is not something really that's made it over to the UK.
That's not surprising at all.
Yeah, so this Philly cheese stack, it's got some kind of cheese sauce. As I say, I don't think they're allowed to say cheese whiz. I don't know, copyright reasons or something.
As someone who lives not too far from Philly and has enjoyed genuine Philly cheese steaks multiple times, call it what you want, but no. Just don't call it Philly. Do you guys still deep fry your McDonald's apple pies over there?
Oh, yeah.
See, God damn it, we don't. And it drives me nuts. I hate it. No, it's got to be baked over here. No, I want it to come out and be the temperature of the sun, and just give me that apple pie oil goodness, and we don't get that over here because it has to be baked.
We've actually got a new one coming out again on the 11th of February. It's white chocolate and raspberry pie.
Maybe. I'm assuming it's white chocolate, like covered on the outside, but the inside is raspberry, or is it mixed inside?
It's raspberry and white chocolate inside, so it's kind of like a ganache. And on the outside, looking at the picture of it, it's got a slight red tinge to it, so they've done something to the coating as well. So I don't know quite how that's going to go, apart from the fact that if it's a ganache and they heat it up the same way, yeah, 3rd-degree burns. You drop that on your skin, you're going to know about it.
Yeah.
So last year, the local chip shops have tried to get in on the festive market by deep-fried pigs in blankets. Well, I don't know if you know what a pigs in blanket is.
Yeah, I do. Oh, yeah.
You know what an English pigs in blanket is, yeah?
Okay, well, I don't know what the English one is.
Because your one is like sausage and pastry, right?
Or sometimes sausage and cabbage.
Okay.
Depends on what part of the country you're in.
Obviously, a sausage wrapped in pastry here is a sausage roll. But a pigs in blanket here is a chipolata wrapped in bacon.
Ooh.
And the fish and chip shops have been deep frying them.
Maybe. I'd try it.
I mean, even our local chicken shop tried to do a festive dessert. Because here we have these things called after 8 mints. They're basically a wafer thin mint that you have on the table just as a palate cleanser, I guess. But they made an after 8 mint cheesecake.
Yeah, see, damn it. The thing with cheesecake for me is the texture. Mm-hmm. So I love it. I love after 8 mints, but don't know that I could handle that. After 8s are yummy, though.
I think I'd be a bit heavy as a cheesecake, personally. I'm not sure. I don't think it would be that light. But yeah, after 8 mints are awesome. And the one thing they've brought out for the last couple of years, I don't know if you've ever heard of a Terry's Chocolate Orange.
Yeah. In fact, I got them from my family for Christmas, not this past year, but the year before.
Well, for the last couple of years, they've made Terry's Chocolate Mint, which looks like a chocolate orange. Mm-hmm. You break it into segments like a chocolate orange, but it tastes of mint.
See, that I would go for. The orange chocolate is okay, but there's just something about orange and chocolate that doesn't really do it for me. That one I would absolutely have destroyed. I'm going to have to look for that one.
And they also do a plain chocolate one as well. It's just chocolate segments. No flavour, just chocolate.
No, the chocolate doesn't have any flavor.
Well, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
It doesn't taste like chocolate. It tastes of nothing.
Oh, so it's Hershey. Oh. Did I say that?
No, that would be it tastes of sugar.
Yeah.
Right. That's enough of us waffling on for now. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to do what we do best and go all spacey.
About the ISS, that 15 countries made a success. Took a lot of space flights for us to build a station as big as a football field. 2 Johns on board, but they got no bath. Orbits the Earth in an hour and a half. Over 200 miles up off the ground, and tipping them scales at £1 million. Making benefits for humanity through new science and technology. Over 200 people have lived on board, the heroes of Earth who were driven to explore space, that is, off the Earth, for the Earth, on the journey to Mars.
My name is Will Wheaton. I played Wesley Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation. As a weird kid who was super bullied all the time, Star Trek gave me friends who didn't judge me. Star Trek spoke to all the things that I was aspiring to. I wanted to be the kindest person I could be. I wanted to be a helper. I wanted to go to the moon, and Star Trek was inspiring me. From time to time, I stop and really contemplate just how large our planet is. And then I think about the size of just our galactic neighborhood. If we just stay on planet Earth, we've never gotten out of our bed. We haven't even walked across the room. We've never seen what's outside. Where did we come from? The answers are all in space exploration. I had the incredible privilege of pretending to live in Starfleet. Have you ever wanted to really be part of Starfleet? The Planetary Society brings people like you, like me, together to share our passion and commitment to space exploration. If you want to make the Star Trek world that we all love that much closer to becoming a reality, the Planetary Society is a wonderful place to get started.
We are the Planetary Society!
This is TGP Nominal.
Welcome back to TGP Nominal. There's been a lot going on in the space industry lately.
There has been. Both good and bad.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, so what have you got for us?
Me? Making me start off? Is that how it is? So you know who Bill Nye is.
The science guy, yeah, indeed.
The science guy, of course. Was that show ever played over there?
No.
You just know him because you're an American. You love America, so.
We had a guy over here, a guy called Johnny Ball, and he was our answer to Bill Nye, the science guy. And a lot of young people won't know who he is because you have to be of a certain age to know who Johnny Ball is. The best way to describe him is he's Fatboy Slim's father-in-law.
Oh, wow. You know who Bill Nye is for sure. Probably most people listening to this do. But
if you don't know him through his television shows, you probably know him through the Planetary Society.
Yep. So he was recently awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in recognition of his dedication to science education. So the Presidential Medal of Freedom is the highest civilian medal, well, at least that the White House can give. Congress has their own. It's the Congressional Gold Medal. But for civilians, the highest one that the president can give is the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And Bill Nye was recently awarded that. So, yeah, as you said, he's the CEO of the Planetary Society. He was one of 19 honorees to receive it. And so officials from the White House said Bill Nye has inspired and influenced generations of American students as Bill Nye the Science Guy. His dedication to science education continues through his work as CEO of the Planetary Society and a vocal advocate for space exploration and environmental stewardship. So he won 19 Emmy Awards for his Bill Nye the Science Guy TV show, which is pretty freaking awesome. So and they said that by sharing the magic of fun and science, he inspires generations of Americans, well, not just Americans, I mean, you know who he is, to follow facts and reasons and leave the world better than we found it. Oh, if only we could do that. Throughout his career, he made several contributions to science and space, including helping to design the sundials for the Mars Exploration Rover to explore the surface of Mars between 2004 and 2019. So he has also written over 20 books and holds several U.S. patents. And he is now the recipient of a Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Well deserving as well, because there's a lot of people in the States that went on to science careers and technology careers because of him.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you can inspire people to do that, then, you know, more power to him, you know? I mean, I've seen some of his shows, and he is quite a character. There's no one quite like Bill Nye.
No, there's not.
Actually, I'll have to find something on YouTube of him so that some of our British listeners can find out what he's all about. And also for our American listeners, I'll put something up of Johnny Ball as well. Who I'd love to get on the show, because you remember, well, you never forget the time when Richard Garriott came on the show.
Mm-hmm.
If Johnny Ball came on the show, I'd probably geek out as well.
Nice.
He's probably inspired me to get into science and stuff. So yeah, much respect for Bill Nye on that. That's an amazing achievement.
Isn't your equivalent over there an MBE?
Well, we have MBEs, OBEs, CBEs, and then a KBE.
Oh, my God.
KBE is a knighthood. So you have member of the British Empire, officer of the British Empire, commander of the British Empire, and then knight of the British Empire.
Jeez.
And the way things are going, I don't think it'll be long before Ross from UK Astronomy gets one of those. Not the knighthood, one of the others.
Right.
If he does get a knighthood, even better. But he's just actually been given an honorary doctorate.
Nice.
From the Open University. And he's got to go up to Liverpool, I think, in April to receive his honorary doctorate. So come April, he will be Dr. Ross Hockham, BCAE.
Nice.
For contributions in inspiring young people into sciences. The UK Space Agency has signed an agreement with Axiom Space to develop a space mission carrying 4 astronauts from the UK. The flight would most likely use the SpaceX Crew Dragon vehicle and travel to the International Space Station. The crew is expected to include reserve and active astronauts recently selected by the European Space Agency, but they will be funded commercially. Retired ESA astronaut Tim Peake was named as the strategic advisor for Axiom Space at the Farnborough Air Show last July, and it has been reported recently that he will be commanding the mission also. Tim said the mission was really important. It helps to inspire young people to think about STEM and think about the kind of career opportunities that are available to them in the space sector. Annalise Look, the Deputy Chief Executive of the UK Space Agency, said, "We are short of people who want to join the space sector. We need our next generation to want and come and join and have a career in space." As well as attracting more people to the sector, she said manned space missions as opposed to unmanned ones have scientific benefits too. Astronauts do really high quality science and the research for us on the space station, and they're always looking at things that we simply can't do down here on Earth. By taking this step, the UK is joining other countries on a commercial path to human spaceflight. It's a very significant one too, because commercial funding is absolutely crucial for the future of space exploration. In 1998, ESA decided that it would employ and train its own astronauts. Prior to that, few European countries had astronauts flying under their own banner. ESA's decision was intended to reinforce its role in spaceflight internationally. At the time, the agency had also decided that it wanted to strengthen its ISS collaboration and wanted to get the most out of it, and sending astronauts up there was one way of doing this. Prior to 1998, the UK had produced several astronauts and potential astronauts, including Michael Foale, who had dual UK-US nationality and flew as a NASA astronaut, and then we had Helen Sharman, who went into orbit in 1991 as part of an arrangement with the Russian government. As a result of the European Astronaut Corps being created in 1998, national astronaut corps in ESA member states were dismantled. When I was a kid, there wasn't really any way that British kids had any option of getting into space or those kind of sectors, and the only way they could do it was get the correct kind of qualifications, move to America, become an American citizen and join NASA, which is exactly what Michael Foale did. And Piers Sellers, he was another one who did that as well. It was very difficult. If you went to your what you call a careers officer over here, when kids are looking into where they want to push themselves towards as a career, if you said to them you wanted to get into space or into the space sector, you would pretty much get laughed at. Mm-hmm. There was no way that anyone could do it. So now is such a great time for kids to learn and get inspired, to get into the sciences and the STEM subjects, and not necessarily become an astronaut, but become one of the teams that get us up into space. That would be so cool.
You're talking about how, all the things for the UK, if you wanted to be an astronaut, you had to basically go to the US or something like that. Well, you've been talking about getting your own rocket launches over there?
Yep.
Looks like it's coming.
Uh-huh.
So, German launch vehicle startup Rocket Factory Augsburg has received a license from British regulators to carry out its first orbital launch from a spaceport in the Shetland Islands this year. The Civil Aviation Authority, which licenses the launches and the spaceports, announced back on January 16th that it issued a license to RFA, allowing the company to conduct launches of its RFA-1 rocket from, is it Saxavord?
Saxavord,
okay. Saxavord Spaceport. First license issued by the CAA for a vertical orbital launch from the UK, and the first license for a privately developed vertical orbital launch from Europe. Interesting. It said right now the company is working towards a test flight later this year. They did not offer a more specific schedule. Unfortunately, they actually did try to do a test firing back in August, which destroyed the vehicle. Oops. So at the time, they said they were planning a launch for the end of last year. So now, because of the accident, they were going to delay the rocket's inaugural launch to this year. There you go. You might be seeing a rocket launch soon, my friend.
Yeah.
And the thing is, because of the distance, you probably don't even... Granted, if being there at the launch site would be better, but depending on how large the rocket is, you might even be able to see it from where you're at if you can get a nice clear sky. You know, might have to wait like 90 seconds for it to get up there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a launch pad in Virginia that, depending on which way the rocket launches, if we wait like 90 seconds or 2 minutes, we should technically be able to see it from here. And we're a good, like 200 miles away from that facility. So you might actually be able to see some rockets going up, my friend.
Yeah, so I've heard. So the RFA plan to launch up to 10 rockets a year.
Wow.
Carrying a number of small satellites and other payloads. Now, Saxo-Vaud Spaceport already has all of its licenses it needs to operate and hopefully launches up to, I think, 30 rockets a year. Another 6 rocket companies are planning to launch from the Shetland site, but RFA are furthest ahead with their planning. Their test flight is fully booked with 7 German companies already committed to putting their valuable payloads on board the rocket. And another German company called High Impulse hopes to launch its own vehicle into orbit from the site as well.
Nice.
On top of that, you've got a Scottish company called Skyrora who are waiting on approval of their own launch operator license from the Civil Aviation Authority. And if it gets granted, it plans to launch its Skylark L rocket in late 2025 or early 2026 with up to 16 launches per year after that. And then... There's another company called Orbx Space. Now, they were going to be building their own spaceport in Sutherland in the Scottish Highlands, but instead, they're going to launch their rockets from Saxo-Vaud Spaceport as well.
Nice.
The decision enables the company to direct more funding to a development of a medium-sized launch vehicle called Proxima. Phil Chambers, the CEO of Orbx, said, Orbx is first and foremost a launch service specialist. Our primary goal is to support the European space industry by achieving a sustainable series of satellites into low Earth orbit. This is best achieved by focusing our resources and talents on developing launch vehicles and associated launch services. So they're doing what NASA should be doing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Finding ways to launch stuff, use somebody else's launch stuff, and concentrate on the stuff that goes into the rockets that get up there. So it's making it more cost efficient for them. And they basically said it's a win-win for the UK and Scottish space. So yeah, things are looking very interesting for Saxo-Vaud. I'm actually subscribed to the Saxo-Vaud podcast. They've even got their own podcast. So, yeah, I'm quite up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, I figured.
And they've even got people from Rocket Lab going over to Shetland because the area that they're actually launching the rockets from is very similar to the setup that they've got in New Zealand. So they're going to lend their know-how to the people in Scotland. It's going to be very interesting. Things have gone dead about what's going on in Cornwall. Ever since the Virgin mishap, not a lot has been said about Spaceport Cornwall. So we are very much relying on launching from the Shetlands.
Yeah, for now. I mean, the Cornwall, it's still a spaceport, though.
It is, but...
Kinda, sorta. I mean, maybe not that kind of spaceport.
They only had one customer, though. That was the problem.
For now.
And it is only set up for rockets that can be launched underneath a plane.
Yeah.
And there are a few companies that do that. So maybe they have the capabilities of doing it. They might want to launch something from the UK at some point as a backup. Who knows? Last time we were launching rockets was in the 1970s, and we had some fantastic rockets in the 1970s. Unfortunately, the programs were scrapped before they had a chance to do anything with them, typical of the government. It's a very interesting time. When we eventually get rockets launching from the UK, it will put us back to being a spacefaring nation again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw a video of a meteorite that hit the paving stones beside the porch of a house.
Yes.
That was captured on the doorbell camera.
Yes, I saw and heard that.
Yeah. It was recorded last July in the Canadian province of Prince Edward Island, but it's only been recently made public. A sharp crash that sounds like glass shattering or ice cracking has been documented as likely as the world's first audio recording of a meteorite crash. The homeowner, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Joe Valadum, had returned from a walk when he noticed a chalky mark of what we now know to be the meteorite impact on his front walkway. The shocking thing for me is that I was standing right there a couple of minutes before the impact, he told CBS News. The University of Alberta's meteorite collection curator, Chris Hurd, who just happened to have a vacation on the island already scheduled, got a call to investigate it. It's not anything we've ever heard before. From a science perspective, it's completely new. It's actually the first and only meteorite ever found on the island, and what a way to make that discovery, he said. Every time that happens, it's a new sample from space. It's from the asteroid belts between Mars and Jupiter, so it's come a real long way. About 95 grams of meteorite bits were gathered from the site, and Hurd received around about 7 grams of the sample to study back at the university. The analysis found that the samples were ordinary chondrites, the most common type of stony meteorite found on Earth, accounting for about 86% of all space rocks recovered. After entering through the atmosphere, the meteorite travelled at terminal velocity, which is about the same speed as a rock being dropped from an airplane, before landing in the small community of Marshfield. The official name for the meteorite is the Charlottetown meteorite, after the island's capital city, which is located just east of Maysfield. I'll include a link to the video in the show notes because it's a kind of a blink and you miss it kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's only like 2 frames that you can actually see it, but it's so cool.
The video that I've got of this actually shows you it, and then it shows you it again in slow motion so you can see it happen. But yeah, it's completely amazing. When I first saw the video, I thought, oh, this is going to be nothing, one of these clickbait things.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it, I was like, wow.
You'd think there would be something since then, but no. But it is cool to finally be able to see that.
It's just the way that when it hit the paving stones, they completely changed colour. But then I guess if you've got something that's that hot hitting the deck, it's going to char a little bit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, but yeah, the sound of that. Oh, I don't even know how you describe it.
It's a little bit like if you threw a heavy rock at a pond when there's ice on it. Mm-hmm. That kind of sound, but not. It's completely different, isn't it? It's something you can't really describe.
Yeah.
You need to experience it, and that's the other reason why I wanted to put the video in the show notes.
Oh, the video is definitely worth watching. It is one thing that people are like, well, what's the big deal? Because, we've seen meteors and so forth going on because of people's dash cams and so forth, but to actually see something hitting somebody's front porch is totally different. So thanks to another home camera, so China successfully launched a classified satellite on January 23rd, and China launches its rockets inland. That's an old Cold War relic thing. They don't really launch from oceanside areas like we do. So their rockets and their boosters and so forth come down over land. So this Long March 3B rocket went up, and the satellite is on its way to stationary orbit, but one of the 4 strap-on side boosters fell back to Earth in a populated area of, I'm going to get this wrong probably, Zhenyuan County in Guizhou Province. I'm doing my best on that one. But this was actually 2 family members. It was more of the reaction. You don't get to see the explosion, but one of those rocket boosters landed in the hills right near their house. So you can see them turning around and looking at it, then all of a sudden there's just a big flash because that's how close that rocket was to the house. Yeah, it was in the hills above their house, basically. And to be able to see that it came that close, it was probably still maybe 1 or 2 kilometers away, but nonetheless, you have a rocket explosion that close to your house, you're going to freak out.
Oh, yeah.
It's just crazy.
It's difficult enough to get information here about rocket launches from China. We know there's rocket launches going off. We know what rocket they're going on, but we don't know what the mission is until it's in the air.
Yeah.
So I can imagine people that live in these little rural areas in China, they're not going to know what's going on.
No, not at all. But the worst part is, though, I mean, launching them over land like that, a lot of those boosters still have propellant in them. And the propellant's a very bad mix of things like hydrazine and what's one of the other ones? Nitrogen tetroxide and so forth.
Yep.
And these things, they're deadly chemicals if you breathe them in. And they're landing near people's houses. And, you know, well, we've seen videos before of like failed rocket launches, and people are actually running up to this orange plume that's coming down from the debris.
Yeah.
It's like, no, get away from that. What are you doing?
Orange gas or whatever it is coming out of it is not good.
No, you definitely don't want to be breathing that. If it's a color, it's bad. You don't want to breathe it in anyway. But if it's something other than like white or gray, you definitely don't want to be going near it. And that stuff burns like an orange. It's like, yeah, you don't want to inhale that. But unfortunately, they keep launching from inland, and this is just going to keep happening.
Apart from one launch that's happened recently on what they call a Sea Dragon. It's an actual floating launch pad from one of the Chinese private ventures. One launched in January, I believe. I'll have to look into that. And if I find any information about it, I'll put it in the show notes. But there was definitely a Sea Dragon launch recently. Talking of China, China has radically changed the way of doing things when it comes to sourcing the next generation cargo spacecraft that they want to send into space, and are following suit with the West in more ways than one. The Tianzhou is the current Chinese main cargo spacecraft, which has been in service since 2017. Now, they launch it every 9 months on a Long March 7 rocket to bring provisions, propellant and science experiments to the astronauts on the Chinese space station. Its capacity is 7.5 tons, and that is pretty big payload capacity, especially when compared with the equivalent spacecraft around the world. But it gives less flexibility, as larger capacities mean, well, less frequent launches. So China needs a smaller spacecraft. On May the 16th, 2023, the CNSA, the Chinese Space Agency, published a request for proposals for a low-cost, that's quote-unquote, cargo transportation system to the Chinese space station. The document was clear that candidate projects would have to be flexible, reliable and cheaper. Specifically, payload capacities to the Chinese space station would have to be of at least 1.8 tons, and there should be at least 7 cubic meters of pressurized cargo space. The proposal request for the first time was open to all companies, including commercial companies, rather than just state-owned companies. And this was China's first step into the commercialization of its space program, very similar to NASA's Commercial Supply Services contract. In 2024, 2 companies had been selected, AVIC with their Haolong 1 and Shanghai Microsat with their Qingzhou. Haolong 1 is the most eye-catching of the 2 spacecraft, as it adopts a spaceplane approach with swept-back delta wings that generate lift, enabling the spacecraft to land horizontally on a runway, and looks remarkably like Sierra Space's Dream Chaser. It's 10 metres in length and 8 metres wide. It has a payload capacity of 1.8 tonnes and has a standard Chinese docking mechanism in the rear, enabling it to connect to one of the Chinese space station's docking ports. The spacecraft is said to be less than half the weight of the Tianzhou spacecraft, meaning that it would weigh probably less than 7 tons. The wings are foldable, enabling it to fit within the payload fairings of a launch vehicle. We don't really know what rocket will launch the Haolong 1, but it is reported that it could and would launch on commercial rockets. There are many potential options in this payload capacity range, such as Galactic Energy's Pallas 1 or iSpace's Hyperbola 3. How Long 1's ability to re-enter the atmosphere and return safely to the ground will massively increase China's ability to bring payloads back from the Chinese space station and back to Earth. Up till now, this was done on Shenzhou, the spacecraft's return capsule, which is already occupied by 3 astronauts, or taikonauts, during their return trip, and despite the astronauts cramming the place with bags, Shenzhou can barely bring back 50 kilograms of payload from space. There have been 8 Shenzhou missions since the deployment of the Chinese space station in 2021. In other words, 400 kilograms have been brought back over 8 missions. But to put things a little bit into perspective, How Long 1 will be able to bring down 4 times this amount in one mission. It's unclear when the maiden launch of How Long 1 will take place, but the chief engineer described the spacecraft as finished its preliminary design phase and now was entering the engineering design phase, which sounds like, well, there's a lot of work to be done and still probably a couple of years before the spacecraft enters service. Competing with How Long 1 is Qingzhou, which will launch for the first time in September 2025. The spacecraft consists of a single integrated module, which will have 27 square meters to host payloads for the Chinese space station, as well as spacecraft systems such as propulsion. An optional refrigeration unit will be proposed to send up, for example, fresh produce or temperature-sensitive experiments. The payload capacity, once again reported by Chinese television, is to be between 1.8 and 2 tons. And while this spacecraft is not reusable, it will be used as a means to offload waste, carrying 2.9 tons of it when Qingzhou undocks and burns up into the Earth's atmosphere. So out of the two, environmental-wise, How Long 1 will be better because it's not burning anything up into the atmosphere. So yeah, China are becoming more commercial with the way they do things.
It's kind of inevitable.
Like I used to say about Russia, and it's the same with China. For a communist country, they do commercialism very well.
Are they really communist when you think about it? I think Russia kind of gave up on that a long time ago.
It doesn't pay, does it?
Mm-mm.
I think China are...
I mean, China's closer to it, but they're still very much capitalist.
I mean, when they took Taiwan back and Hong Kong back...
Taiwan is... did they take Taiwan back? They took Hong Kong back.
Yes and no. They say yes, there's other sources
Taiwan
say no.
says no. Yeah.
But if you think about it, since they took back Hong Kong, for example, which Hong Kong was a very commercialised country, they haven't changed much of that at all because it makes so much money. All that's changed really is who runs the country. It's not the UK anymore.
Yeah.
It's been a busy time at ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organisation. The Indian government has approved the establishment of a third launch pad at the Satish Dhawan Space Centre. The third launch pad project will establish the launch infrastructure for ISRO's next generation launch vehicles and will also provide support as a standby launch pad for the second launch pad at the Space Centre. This will also enhance the launch capacity of future Indian human spaceflight missions. The expanded vision of the Indian space program, including, and you'll have to excuse me on this one, the Bharat Antariksha, or the BAS, which I'm glad that's got an acronym because I'm not saying that again, or translated into English, is the Republic of India Space Station, which is much easier to say, and that will be by 2035, and an Indian crewed lunar landing by 2040. This requires a new generation of heavier launch vehicles with new propulsion systems, which cannot be met by the existing launch pads. So, yeah, they mean business. Their crewed programs are really coming into force, and because of that, 2 Indian astronauts, or Gaganyantri, have been selected for the upcoming Axiom 4 mission in collaboration with NASA to the International Space Station. So, like Russians have the cosmonauts and China have taikonauts, India have Gaganyantri. Now, do you know what we call British astronauts?
I could be such a smart... And no.
Tim, because we've only got one.
I should smack you from across the ocean. Anyway.
Not only that, they have completed the initial phase of their training. Group Captain Shukla, who will be the mission pilot, and Group Captain Neer, who will be the backup pilot, commenced their initial phase of training at Kennedy Space Center during the first week of August last year. The upcoming training will primarily address the remaining modules of the US orbital segments of the space station, along with training towards conducting scientific research experiments in a microgravity environment. In addition, the crew will train and perform different mission scenarios on the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. Also, ISRO and ESA have also entered into an agreement that provides a framework for cooperative activities in human spaceflight exploration and research, especially in areas such as astronaut training, support for experiment development and integration, including the use of ESA facilities on the International Space Station. The agreement has been drawn up because Group Captain Shukla will be joined by 2 ESA astronauts during the Axiom 4 mission. So we have Sławomir Winischki from Poland and Tibor Kapu from Hungary, who will be mission specialists, and NASA's Peggy Whitson will be serving as the commander. So that's going to be a completely international crew. An Indian, Polish guy, and a Hungarian, and an American. The Indian Space Agency are creeping up there.
That's good.
It is. I love it.
No darn thing wrong with that.
I love it because to see all these different nations going up to the International Space Station, I would love it to see, you know, when you get a full house up there and there's like 12 astronauts on board the space station. Wouldn't that be fantastic to have somebody from 12 different nations on board at one time?
I can't imagine having 12 people on that space station, regardless of what nationalities they are, would be that good of a... How many people are normally on the space station at a time?
There's usually about, they can go 6 to 8, but there have been 13.
Right.
And that was a bit of a push.
That's what I was thinking. As cool as that might be, my brain went to what it must be like up there with 12 people.
Yeah. Considering the fact that the hygiene situation is not fantastic up there as it is.
No, not at all.
But, you know, when the civilian spacecrafts were, you know, the SpaceX missions with the civilians on board, when they were up there with near enough a full house on the space station as well, there was 19 people in space at one time. I think that's the record.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of TGP Nominal and its infinite mission to explore space, science, and technology news, to explore the world of sci-fi, comic-cons, and gaming, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
We need to talk about Starship, and we need to talk about New Glenn as well, because they both happened on the same day. I'll start off with New Glenn, and we'll go into Starship in a moment. So Blue Origin is the company that's launched New Glenn, and as we know, it's owned by Amazon boss Jeff Bezos. They launched the New Glenn from Florida, and it was scheduled to blast off on Monday the 13th, but it was delayed due to technical issues, which the team managed to resolve. What was amazing is that it managed to get into orbit on its first go. I know that happened with Falcon Heavy and things like that, but this was, you know, a brand new rocket for Blue Origin, and it did its thing. Unfortunately, the first stage was supposed to land on a ship. It didn't make it, but then how many times did SpaceX have to launch before they actually got it to land on one of the drone ships? I think it was probably 4 or 5 times, something like that, wasn't it?
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
And then later the same day, SpaceX launched its Starship 7 test flight. Everything was looking fantastic to start with. The first stage came down, it got caught in the chopsticks. That sounds painful. It went very quiet with the commentary, and then they announced that they'd lost telemetry with it, and they didn't quite know where it was at the time. And then we started getting these videos coming in on social media from people over the Caribbean and in particular Turks and Caicos. Spectacular to see, but not great in the whole scope of things.
No.
They've been grounded for now. The Federal Aviation Administration has said that it's working with SpaceX and other authorities to confirm reports of property damage in Turks and Caicos Islands, although there's been no reports of injuries, which is good. The FAA also confirmed that it activated a debris response area to briefly slow the aircraft outside of the area where the debris was falling or stop aircraft from leaving their departure locations. SpaceX were launching a new, taller, upgraded version of the rocket. They'd made a lot of changes to some of the heat shield and stuff like that as well. I'm not sure if some of that might have been part of the problem. They are keeping a lot of it hush-hush at the moment. They're normally quite open about these things, but I'll have to read into that a bit further and see if there's anything new on that. Originally, it was supposed to splash down in the Indian Ocean, but obviously it didn't make that.
Made for some very amazing videos, though.
Oh, yeah, that is for sure. The only thing that Elon Musk has said that the first indications were that the problem was linked to an oxygen fuel leak in the cavity above the ship's engine firewall. Apart from that, I haven't seen anything else on there. So New Glenn managed to make it into orbit but not land the first stage, and Starship managed to land the first stage but the second stage failed. So when you think about it, between them they had a perfect launch.
Jeez. But perfect launch and perfect failure, though.
But yeah, it certainly was a couple of days of big launches, because the day before that, I think, was the Firefly Blue Ghost, which is the lander that's going up to the moon. Mm-hmm. So that went up the day before. Yeah, there's been so many launches lately. It's like every other day there's a launch. We mentioned that we wasn't going to get very political, but there's certain things that we can't not mention.
I mean, when politics affects anything space-related, we have to talk about it.
Yeah. So I take it you've heard who President Trump's nominee for NASA administrator is?
Yep.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. So President Trump has nominated Jared Isaacman. I think he's got some great ideas, but he's got some things in his back catalogue that he'd have to deal with beforehand, because there's a conflict of interest, because he's CEOs of companies and all sorts of stuff. If people out there don't know who Jared Isaacman is, he's a billionaire.
Of course he is.
He started his own business at the age of 16 and he's been running it ever since. I believe he owns the world's biggest private air force, I think. He funded the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021, which was the first fully civilian crewed orbital space flight. He then paid for the Polaris Dawn mission in September last year, which travelled to an unusually high orbit, placing the crew farther from Earth than any other human since Apollo 17. And it also demonstrated the first private astronaut spacewalk, and Isaacman flew as commander on both of those missions. Now, like many of Trump's second-term nominees, Isaacman is a very unorthodox choice. I mean, he has no public service experience, no scientific or engineering training. He has no professional experience in the space industry, and he's an outsider to NASA, the space industry, and to Washington. But it's not unheard of for a NASA administrator to have non-space science backgrounds. I mean, Sean O'Keefe, he had no science background. Jim Bridenstine, that was the guy who was in charge under Trump's last time he was president. And even James Webb had no scientific or engineering experience. Science and engineering training can be helpful, but the necessary skills for a NASA administrator include bureaucratic dexterity, salesmanship, risk analysis, all that kind of stuff. And the relationship between the administrator and the president can also be a powerful tool. And we don't know if Isaacman and Trump have engaged much prior to this announcement.
It's not like he's a complete outsider. You know, he was the founder of 2 missions, so he has done things that are space-related.
Yeah. I mean, this is what he had to say in his statement when he accepted the nomination intention. He said, space holds unparalleled potential for breakthroughs in manufacturing, biotechnology, mining, and perhaps even pathways to new sources of energy. There will be a thriving space economy, one that will create opportunities for countless people to live and work in space. At NASA, we will passionately pursue these possibilities and usher in an era where humanity becomes a true spacefaring civilization. Americans will walk on the moon and Mars, and in doing so, we will make life better here on Earth.
Even Lori Garver, who was the deputy administrator for NASA during Obama's administration, she's like, hey, he's going to be terrific.
There's a lot of positive feedback about him, to be fair. There's a lot of things he can do to try and streamline NASA. Like we've been saying for a long time, there's certain directions that they should be heading and not others. It says here, he's a frequent critic of the space launch system, calling it at times outrageously expensive. He's also taken aim at major aerospace contractors, saying that they are becoming complacent and economically inefficient, and noting that science missions are suffering in order to accommodate a non-usable rocket that, according to the Government Accountability Office, costs $4 billion per flight.
Yep.
He is, of course, a fan of SpaceX.
Well, of course. I mean, you know, he's a fellow oligarch.
Yeah, and because of that, his relationship with Elon Musk could be very useful in the upcoming administration, assuming Elon Musk remains a trusted and close advisor to the president.
Let's hope not.
His own approach to private spaceflight is also revealing because he wasn't a passive tourist. He appeared to throw himself into both the missions that he was involved in, demanding extensive training regime for him and his crew. Those missions had risks, but he demonstrated a good instinct for public engagement by leveraging the media awareness around his flights to raise hundreds of millions of dollars for the St. Jude Children's Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
He's already mentioned that he will step down as CEO of his company in February.
Yeah.
His fondness for SpaceX, which has received more than $11 billion in NASA contracts since the start of the first Trump administration, and any other financial interest will have to be disclosed and managed in an open and transparent manner.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strange time to be taken over. I mean, there's a lot of problematic issues, what with Artemis and...
In fairness, when has NASA not had problematic issues?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you know, people kept criticizing the space shuttle program.
Mm-hmm.
So that was problematic. And then suddenly, hey, we're going to get rid of the space shuttle program with nothing in the pipeline to replace it. Well, that was problematic. Oh, hey, we want to save the jobs of all the people who were on the space shuttle program, so we're going to come out with the big SLS. Well, that's problematic.
Yeah.
NASA's always had issues, and I am far less concerned about this guy being in charge of NASA than I am with other candidates being in charge of other parts of the government. And I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally think that NASA needs to change with the times.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be commercially viable if they want to survive in the new space race. And I think Jared Isaacman could possibly help them achieve this.
Do they need to be a factor in the commercial space race? I mean, they've proven that they know how to do the exploration stuff, whether it's New Horizons or it's the Mars rovers or, you know, any of those kinds of vehicles. They've proven they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the launch vehicles that we obviously have a problem with. There's so many other companies out there that are building launch vehicles. Let them do that.
They've already done that because the original Orion test flight didn't go on an SLS, did it?
No.
And that works fine.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't they just do that again?
Just let NASA build the stuff that they're good at. There is no space race right now that demands that NASA builds the SLS. This isn't trying to get people to the moon for the first time anymore. You know, they don't need to rebuild the Saturn V. Hello, Lego Saturn V on my desk. But I just don't understand why they don't just focus on what they're good at, which are the vehicles that get put into space. Let other people deal with the launch vehicles.
I agree, 100%. There's some really good tried and tested vehicles out there, and possibly newer ones still. I mean, Blue Origin are proving that they can launch the bigger stuff, and they're just going to keep building bigger rockets. And technology has changed tenfold since the days of the Saturn V.
Well, hell, since the days of the space shuttle, really.
Well, yeah. You think about it, the mini computer that we carry in our pocket is God knows how much powerful than the ones that they were originally using to calculate things with. New technology, or technology itself, is changing all the time. New materials, cheaper materials. When I say cheaper, I don't mean cheaper in quality. The quality is there. It's just not costing as much to produce the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as we saw with some of the stuff that went up to Mars, they were using off-the-shelf parts to build these things. And if you can do that, then that's going to cut costs. Being, reusable on a lot of things is definitely cutting costs. There's so much now that NASA don't need to worry about.
Nope.
Don't worry about the rockets and stuff to get them there. Just worry about the hardware that needs to go in them.
Mm-hmm.
That will cut costs drastically for NASA, and that money can be put towards research into where it's needed. Because you imagine how advanced we would be on different things, or NASA would be, if they didn't have to worry about the research and development and everything for SLS.
Mm-hmm.
We probably could have been on Mars by now.
No, I don't see that one happening either.
I do and I don't. I don't think we're going to have an outpost.
No.
What I do think we'll have is a gateway again, like the gateway they want to build around the moon as a stepping stone to get further out. I think we're going to have another one that will be orbiting Mars, which then will get us further out still.
Well, maybe.
If we can get out to places like some of the moons like Europa and such like, and once we've done all the robotic side of it to find out if we can live on these kind of places, produce the stuff we need to survive, we will be able to go out a lot further.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying not to be a down. I'm just trying to be a realist. I don't see a human on Mars happening in our lifetime. I really don't. Too many issues, too many complications. What else is there to say on that one? It's so different to sending someone up there who can live up there than to send up a robot.
Yeah, and as we've said before, we need to concentrate more at the moment, on the moon.
Yes.
Because we need more than just footprints. We know we can get up there, but can we sustain a long time up there? We don't know.
No, and at least with the moon, it's just a couple of days away once a rocket launches. Mm-hmm. So if there is a problem and if there are enough provisions up there, could we get somebody back from the moon in time? Maybe. On Mars, it's a death sentence. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I understand that people who go up there are willing to accept that risk. Baby step. Let's start these things on the moon first.
Yeah.
Then go to Mars. Trying to get somebody on Mars feels like one of those, just to say we did it, and it's like, no, that's not always a viable excuse. Sorry.
There's an English comedian called Jasper Carrot, and he was talking about exploration in general, not space exploration, but he was talking about when in the 50s people were trying to climb Everest, and they were asking, why are you doing this? And he said, because it's there.
Yeah.
And Jasper Carrot said, an elephant's backside's there, but you wouldn't climb up it, would you?
Yep.
It's more so in the American psyche to explore. It's always been part of the American way to go further and things like that. We've never really had that instinct in Britain. Yes, we have made advances in different things, but it is something that Americans have always done. It's to make discoveries and things. And this is Gene Roddenberry got the idea for Star Trek. It was the discovery, the whole thought of getting people from all nations and all species together and moving forward. And yeah, it is important, but there's only so far you can take it without causing major problems.
Yeah.
At the moment. I mean, I know he was talking of centuries and centuries into the future, but there's a long way to go on this planet first before we start.
Yeah, there is. I mean, we've still got those core samples on Mars that are just sitting there.
Yeah.
You want to send people up to Mars, but yet you don't even have a method that could be done robotically to bring those back?
Those lightsabers.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But yeah, it's like we've proven that the crane technology works because that's how the rovers got dropped. Mm-hmm. We've all seen those stuffed animal cranes at carnivals and so forth.
Yeah, but they're rigged.
Granted, but you can get the vials off of Mars. I mean, doesn't ESA already have some kind of orbiting space platform planned for Mars?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just utilize that, grab the vials, put them on the floating platform, and get them back to Earth.
I take it they're metallic.
Probably.
It needs a magnet.
Depending on what the metal is, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's like...
It's aluminium, no.
You'd think that we'd work on something like that first. And personally, I think that'd be... well, I don't want to say it'd be a lot cooler. Having someone on Mars would be kind of cool. But, like we can't even get those vials yet. Why not work on something to do that? With high-res imagery and so forth, it should be easy enough for something to... And we know that the helicopter works. May the little thing rest in peace. So there must be a way to retrieve those vials. I mean, really, if it's done right, it can be done autonomously.
They've done this already because there was a robotic arm on Earth with a pegboard, and the arm had to put the pegs in the holes in the board, and somebody, I think it was a Danish fella, was controlling the arm from the International Space Station and putting the pegs in the board.
Nice.
I'm sure he was Danish.
Doing that for Mars, though, because of the lag...
Yeah, it's a bit different.
It would be better to have that done autonomously.
Yeah, it'd be a bit like trying to play some kind of video game with a bad connection.
Yeah. No. Yeah, really. The lag on this is terrible.
I've got one last story. Now, technically, it's not space-related.
Oh?
But it is tech-related, and it is a fairly old story, but I've only just come across it, so it's new to me.
Then it's news.
So, this story is about 4 years old, and the story is that scientists have created the first fully transparent solar panel in the hope that it may lead to a wider rollout of solar energy usage in domestic settings. Solar panels are currently opaque, which means they can only be used in solar farms or on roofs. Now, scientists in Incheon University in South Korea have managed to put their theory into practice by creating a new transparent version. This is the first time that a fully clear solar cell has been attempted. Normally, the semiconductor layers, which catch the light and turn it into electricity, are the reason for their opaque colour. The researchers at Incheon University have replaced these layers with titanium dioxide and nickel oxide instead. Both materials have a high optical transparency, so have the capacity to let plenty of visible light through them. However, the efficiency rate of the transparent solar panel is only at 2%. Dr. Stuart Irvine, the director of the Centre for Solar Energy Research at Swansea University, was asked about the complications this may pose. For Irvine, a low rate of efficiency is the biggest challenge for a wider rollout. The other challenge is how far they can push the efficiency to get a useful amount of electricity. This was in 2021, so they may have made it more efficient by now. Asia is no stranger to solar development, with scientists at the Solar Energy Research Institute of Singapore previously producing double-sided panels which were found to be 35% more effective. Now, I remember watching a BBC science TV show called Tomorrow's World as a kid, and one of the features was a transparent film that would transform any southeast-facing window into a satellite dish. Now, I don't remember this product making it commercially, but the idea is very similar. I've got a huge window in my living room, which is roughly about 7 feet long by 5 foot high, and is south-facing, which means when the sun is shining, that side of the house is in constant sunlight, and it would be a perfect place to install a transparent solar panel. Now, that would be cool if you could turn every window in a south-facing wall of a house into solar panels and still be able to see through them. Yeah, it's only the front of our house that gets the sunshine all day long. The back part of the house, it isn't until like mid-afternoon where the whole backyard gets sun. Otherwise, it's the back end of the yard that gets it. That would be so cool.
It would be.
If they could make it that thin as well so that you could put some kind of film over your current windows and it acts as a solar panel. It would make it a lot easier for some people because, say you live in an apartment block, yes, you could have solar panels on the top of the apartment block. The only people that would benefit from that is the landlord.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had them on your window, that's something that you could fit on your windows yourself, you're going to benefit from that financially.
Even if it just charges your phone.
Yeah.
You know, that's still something.
A friend of mine has got solar panels on his house, and all he uses it for is charging up his car, because most solar panels don't need to have sunlight. They can work on daylight, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, all he uses it for is charging up his car.
Yeah.
Whatever's left, he sells back to the power companies and makes money on it.
If we do manage to go solar, that's how it would work here. Now, granted, this house with many computer geeks would never, ever be able to not use electricity that comes off the grid. But still, you know, it could potentially reduce the cost depending on cost of electricity coming from outside versus the cost of the electricity that gets generated.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely would make things a lot easier for people in areas where they can't put, especially in the UK, if you've got one of these, what they call a listed building, one of these old, you know, hundreds of years old house, you might not be able to fit solar panels on the roof.
Yeah.
But the windows is a different thing.
Well, and not just that, but if the building that you've got is considered to be like a national historic kind of thing, they're really going to not let you put solar panels on.
Yeah. But I've got a picture of it there. It's not quite. It's more like looking through an ice block at the moment. But they're getting there. And I say this was in 2021, so there is a possibility that they've made a bit of a breakthrough with it. But I just thought that was a fascinating story and did remind me of watching Tomorrow's World. I used to watch it every Thursday. It was on after Top of the Pops. So it was an hour a week that I used to like, you know, it was...
Pop culture and pop science.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, you can still see episodes of Tomorrow's World on YouTube, and I watched them back. I watched this one the other day. It was made in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was their vision of what they thought the year 2020 was going to be. And yeah, they didn't get that right at all. Some of it they did, wearables and stuff like that. They got that kind of thing where, you know, you can find out how your health is and all that kind of thing through something that you're wearing. And they didn't predict a pandemic, though.
No, they didn't.
Of all the stories I can remember, it was the one about the plastic film that you can put on your windows and turn it into a massive satellite dish. And that would make your house look so much better than having this god-awful looking dish on the side of your house.
I always thought those satellite dishes were cool.
We used to have a place in Aylesbury that every other house had a satellite dish on the side of it, and we used to call it Satellite City. The only thing I used to love about the satellite dishes, the old satellite dishes, not the digital ones, the analog satellite dishes, was the ability to tune into foreign stations to see what other countries were watching. That's where I learnt to speak a few words in German, like watching the film Die Flieger, which was The Fly, and Die Fantastische Vier, The Fantastic Four. It was so strange watching a lot of the foreign channels, though, because you never knew when commercial breaks were coming on, because in the UK, you always used to have a card came up on the screen saying end of part 1 and the name of the TV show you're watching, and then it used to go into the commercial break. But on German channels, they just used to cut the programme and go straight into the commercial. It's a bit like when the commercials come on YouTube, where it just cuts halfway through a show and goes straight into a commercial. So sometimes you didn't know if it was part of the show because you couldn't quite understand what was going on, or was it a commercial?
Spamhead Productions are a small independent sound recording company based in rural Hertfordshire. We specialise in creating content for all your podcasting needs, whether it be field recordings, vox pops, or capturing the atmosphere during social events. Editing is a very time-consuming job, so Spamhead Productions are on hand to take away some of the burden for you. Just advise us on how you'd like your content to sound, and we will do the rest. We can even help you design and manage a website for your podcast too. Visit us now, spamheadproductions.weebly.com. That's spamheadproductions.weebly.com.
So, John.
So what? That sounded rude. Anyway.
It's good to get you back in the fold again. As I say, I haven't spoken to you since Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Since I got my butt kicked on that quiz.
Yeah, I was surprised how well I did on the music quiz, actually. I did quite well on it. I quite enjoyed that, actually. It was different getting Eddie involved.
Yeah.
He is a quiz master himself. I mean, he does do pub quizzes, organise pub quizzes and stuff. So I thought, I think that's something we could implement more often, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, I really enjoy editing the quizzes because I get to input sound effects and stuff. Because, you know, when people get wrong answers and stuff, I can put the wrong answer sound effects and right answer sound effects and all sorts of bits and pieces. Oops. It's good fun editing the quizzes. Yeah, and Eddie loves coming on board to do them, so Eddie just loves getting involved generally because Eddie's just good fun.
Mm-hmm.
A brilliant couple, both of them together. Eddie and Leslie are just fantastic. And of course, Leslie's looking forward to May when we start doing the Eurovision thing again. I'm going to try and get in touch with one or two of the Eurovision YouTube channels, because these are the kind of guys that actually go out to wherever it's being held, this year obviously being in Switzerland, and it would be nice to talk to these guys as well, to hear about, you know, what it's like for them actually being in the journalist pit, as it were, as it must be quite hard work having to run about all over the place trying to get interviews with people and all sorts of stuff. But I think they'd probably enjoy talking to somebody about it. I probably need to get in touch with them beforehand. I get a chat with them and then pre-record it and then put it in the show. Yeah, I think that would be good fun. To add, something else to add to that part of the show. And obviously having Leslie on board is proved to be good fun over the years as well.
Yep.
It's always nice to get a new voice on the show.
And that's going to be the weekend after PAX East. That's fun.
Is it? I don't know when it is this year.
Looks like the second weekend in May. PAX East is the first weekend in May.
They've put that back this year then.
Yeah, really far back.
It's normally March, April time, isn't it?
Yep. That's fine by me. I mean, less of a Boston winter.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, so not too sure what's going to be happening for March, but we will try and get something done for it. And then obviously April, well, it's Yuri's night again.
Mm-hmm.
Comes around very quickly. So, as I always like to say, thanks for listening. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll speak to you again real soon.
Toodles, I say, toodles.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of TGP Nominal.
If you want to get in touch with us, then
send an email to garbagepod@virginmedia.com, where your input is our output.
Or click the social media icons at the top left of the page over at tgpnominal.weebly.com.
If you would like to subscribe to any of our podcasts, you can do so via Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and TuneIn.
And you can listen to me going solo, bringing you the latest in movies and home theater for regular people in the Widescreen podcast over at widescreen.org.
Don't forget to rate and review us. If you like what we're doing here, then why not buy us a pint by clicking on the donate button on any of the podcast pages. And don't forget to spread the word about us.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes the event.